All right. So, can you share your earliest memory of picking up the fiddle?
Oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, probably I was. I mean, I was probably four ish. I had been, I'd seen people play it a lot because of where I grew up. In Appalachia, I'd seen people play it before, and I'd seen some guy playing it on TV on Sesame Street. And so I remember when I had got my first fiddle, it was like a 1/16 size
Hmm.
instrument, and I remember my mom bringing it home. She had like got a rental, and I remember so clearly her bringing it home and me picking that thing up and like just kind of like holding it and be like, oh, this is crazy. And then my next memory of it is like the first time I played at the Vandalia gathering, like a real clear memory. It's a
Hmm.
kind of bluegrass fiddle gathering or bluegrass music gathering in Charleston, and kind of getting up in front of people and playing it and like how that felt. So
Yeah,
I got really kind of hooked on that feeling of like how good it felt to make music in front of people and like play in front of people and all that kind of stuff.
that's awesome. So, do you know how long it was between the time you first started playing until then?
I think probably about a year or so. Yeah, I know I was four when I first started, taking lessons and stuff, and
Hmm.
then I was five. I think the first time we went to like the Vandalia gathering in Charleston, and like, um, I played in like the fiddle contest as a little kid and stuff like that, and so I
Hmm.
think I was about 5 years old.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So, you grew up in West Virginia.
yeah, man.
I'm from Eastern Kentucky, so
I
we're
hear
both
you.
Appalachians here.
Right.
How did those roots really impact you as far as your musical career?
Yeah, man. There's something, as you know, there's something real special about that part of the country. I think there's a reason that so much music comes from our little corner of America. I just think there's such good tradition. I tell people all the time when I'm out playing shows and stuff like that that I just have such vivid memories of like any family gathering, you know, birthdays, holidays, church stuff, anything like that. People just have their instruments. There's music around, and
Yeah.
so music's such a big part of what we do. And then storytelling is also just a big part of our culture. And so I think that's where I really fell in love with like the songwriting part of it was like I just loved kind of hearing those stories come to life through music. And so I think and like Appalachia's like a little bit spooky too. Like we have so many like
Hmm.
legends and folk tales and all those kind of things. So like
Yeah.
I think the marriage of all that stuff, the good music with the kind of storytelling piece of it, I think is what influenced me the most. Is just having that around you all through when you're growing up and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you have any local musicians that you looked up to when you're first starting to play or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember, and I really wish that I wish I could remember some of these guys more by name because the Vandalia Gathering is an event that I remember so vividly we would go to every year. And I can very clearly remember my dad walking me up to these circles of guys out on the lawn and guys and gals. People be playing in these little circles with all their mandolins and banjos and dulcimers and guitars. And people just walk up together and start playing. And they're doing all
Yeah.
this call and response stuff. And I would just fell so in love with that style of music. Oh, do you know this tune? Do you know that tune? Have you ever heard this before? You want to play this with us? And
Hmm.
so I think I fell in love with the style of music more than any one particular person, but it was so
Yeah.
cool to me that it could live locally in this, in our little town or in these little Appalachian communities. And
Hmm.
so I think that was more my first real memory of hearing it kind of prominently throughout where we were. And then of course, like I mean, I knew of people like from where I was from, making waves and everything that I really enjoyed that kind of music. But I think really for me it was more like kind of falling in love with the style when I was real little.
Yeah. You didn't have any big artists, that you looked
Oh
up to?
man, I mean, yeah, I mean, like I'm sure this is the same for Eastern Kentucky, but when you're from West Virginia, you know anybody doing anything even remotely of note from that area.
Yeah.
So of course, like Brad, like I remember when Brad Paisley started popping off, like everybody in West Virginia was like, "Oh my God, he's from West Virginia, you know that, right?" So
Yeah.
I remember being so intrigued by him, and of course, there's a lot of tradition. Of course, like I've always really looked up to Tyler Childers because I loved and still love the way that he does what he's doing and that he's just himself. You know, like he just does what he does. And so from the first time ever even heard of that guy, I was so in love with what he was doing and
Yeah.
how he was doing it. And you know, people from all genres obviously, but man, I like I said, I remember Brad very specifically that first album, like that hint, like mud on the tires and stuff like that. Like when he started doing his thing, I was like, oh, that is so cool that he's like from here
Hmm.
doing something. That's so cool, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's how I look at Tyler Childers and Chris Stapleton and
Chris, yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
So how do you blend, classical style of fiddle playing with more traditional Appalachian country bluegrass?
I think that you know fiddle for me, I don't have to think about it as much when I'm playing it, like because I've been playing it
Yeah.
for so long. And so like a lot of people I learned classically, I learned classical music and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
my love and joy from the fiddle always came from Appalachian style fiddle playing, which I think is way different than like a real Nashville fiddle sound. It's similar, but like there are some really amazing fiddle players. Like Janae Fleener is like a fiddle player I've always looked up to and love. She has a real very clean Nashville sound. You know, I don't play it like that as much. You know, Appalachia sounds like maybe a little more gritty. It sounds almost like Irishy and Scottish folky, you know,
Hmm.
almost. And so I think that you call on some of your history that you know and some of
Yeah.
those like technical things that maybe you know how to do. But
Hmm.
I think so much of what you do with Appalachian style fiddle playing is like that feel. And
Yeah.
I've never been the most technical fiddle player in the world, but I think maybe one thing that I can do kind of well is I can help people feel something when I'm playing. You know, they can
Yeah.
feel the soul of the music, and so that's the real joy I find in playing fiddle,
Well, I
especially.
think that's one of the things that really separates, an average artist to a great artist, honestly, is that ability to convey emotion that way and make it intentional.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I really feel like that's the real sauce with songwriting too. That's a big lesson that
Hmm.
you learn. You know, like that kind of art of being generally specific, but still making the message heard and feelable for whoever's listening to it, you know? Like when you first start writing, you're writing almost so specifically that somebody would have to know you and everything about you to understand what your song's about. But
Hmm.
then then when you get real good at telling those stories or better at it and you can see people out in the crowd like emoting through something that you've written, like that's
Hmm.
the drug, man. There's nothing like that in the whole wide world. And that's when you know you
Yeah.
got something with the song is when people are like, you can see that they're getting it, you know, with what
Hmm.
you've written. And it's a
Yeah.
similar kind of thing, whether it's with your words or with a instrument. It's the same kind of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome. So, after getting your MBA, what led you to pursue music full time?
Oh man, yeah, that's good. Um, I got my MBA because I chickened out of doing music full time. I
Okay.
like music paid for like half my college. I minored in music. So I put the time in, and then I was terrified of doing music for a living, to be honest with you. Like, I was really scared of being a starving artist, and I was more scared that it would make me lose my love for music if I had to do it for a living.
Yeah.
And I was, I come from, I was trying to be so practical with my life. Like, on the one hand, I knew what I loved doing, which was music. And then on the other hand, I like, okay, well, I want to provide a good living for my family and everything. And I didn't see a clear path to that. I didn't know how to do that. And
Right.
so after grad school at my MBA, I went out and got a job in the real world and whatever you want to call it in corporate America. And it was really, I mean, I had some good success there, but it was really killing me, man. Like I was finding no joy in that at all.
Yeah.
Um, and that was kind of what led me to the answer to your question is kind of right before COVID.
Hmm.
Like the end of 2019, I was like, which it really hasn't been that long. I was like, I'm going to try one more time to
Yeah.
do something with music besides just like playing with my friends or playing a wedding here and there or playing at a coffee shop or whatever. and I'm gonna see if I can make it stick. And the way I was trying to commit to do that, and I still got the card in my studio, is I kind of committed to doing something small every day, music related, every single day. Throughout 2020 was gonna be my commitment, and to see what happened,
Yeah.
And then I started that at the tail end of 2019, and then when the whole world shut down in 2020, I was like, like I had a few little local coffee shop gigs lined up to get my guitar and start playing in front of people again, just to start
Hmm.
singing in front of people again because I hadn't done it in so long, and everything got canceled. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do to kind of keep this promise to myself? And
Yeah.
that's how I ended up starting to put a few things online, and that's kind of what started my journey and kind of changed my whole life, was sticking through it that year, especially when everybody was stuck at home. And I was
Yeah.
just trying to find a way to make something of it, and that's how it
So
all
did you
started.
use your marketing degree at all,
Yeah,
to try to promote your music? Is that something that you took from University of Tampa?
100%, man. I mean, I think that is the big lesson I took from most of it, was that my degree was in marketing, and then my whole corporate experience was in the field of digital marketing,
Hmm.
which served me really well. Honestly, like, I just basically looked at it like this. I was like, all right, man, talking to myself. My goal with the whole thing was like how to make an honest to God living, not just barely scraping by. But I got young kids and stuff, so I was like, how do I make a good living, as much if not better than what I was doing in corporate America, with
Hmm.
music? How would I do
Yeah.
it? And then if so, I started treating myself like I would have treated a client, and build it up from day one, build a brand for myself. And
Yeah.
so there are a lot of times where I feel like the oldest guy in the room, compared to some of my, sometimes I'll be, with these like very early 20 something musicians who really inspire me. I'm like, I started this much farther along than a lot of other folks in my circle. And
Hmm.
so, but where I think that gives me an advantage sometimes is that, like, I have the benefit of experience and being like, okay, like, I'm really trying to build this for real, like, to build this at a business sense. And so I always kind of looked at it from that angle first and tried to build it out that way. So yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So what was it like winning TikTok's Gamers Greatest Talent?
That was that was huge for me because, one, it was like a decent amount of money. It was like $10,000, which
Yeah.
was real. It was real money. I got it like 6 months later, but I got it. I got it. And
Hmm.
I needed almost that exact amount to fund the rest of this, what now is my debut album. And
Hmm.
if you've never done it, recording an album, even if you're like bootstrapping a lot of it, is expensive as hell, and I wanted it to like try to do it the right way. And anyways, so doing that was really important for me. And I had tried to do something similar to that like 3 other times, and
Hmm.
failed, and like finished just outside of the money and not won anything. And so a lot of people don't know that. And that was like, I was like, you know what? I'll try this one last time to see if I can, win something. And I did not even expect to make it through. And then here I end up winning this thing, winning a little bit of notoriety with that, winning 10 grand. And um, unbeknownst to me, somebody in the room that worked for the network at NBC was also in the audience. So that's why I got recruited onto AGT the next year, because somebody
Yeah.
that was watching that was also. Anyways, it's just crazy how those dominoes fall, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was good for me for a lot of ways. Financially, it was good because I was able to fund this album, and then I got a call out of the blue a year later to do America's Got Talent. So
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy how that works, but
Yeah, that's neat. That's
yeah.
really cool. Um, so your album, what inspired that? I mean, like specifically the songs, the vibe of the whole album.
Yeah, I mean, Okanaw, like, I named it after the river that flows through my backyard, that the house I grew up in. And the album is obviously focused a lot on Appalachia. It's focused on a lot of where I grew up, and also it's focused on a lot of just like where I was at in life at the time, like the passage of time. I write a lot about my family. I write a lot about like how it feels to me, like, to you know I lost some important people in my life, like a couple grandparents, some struggles I was going through, and then I write about some of the good about Appalachia and some of the bad, like songs like Vampire and Appalachia, and like a murder, like where I'm dealing with like some of the harder things there. And so I was just
Mhm.
trying to be really honest with my writing, and um, I wanted to. It was really important to me if I was having some folks and friends feature on that album.
Yeah.
I wanted to have people that were from the region, friends that I had made in music. That's why Josiah and Charles did it,
Hmm.
and I really wanted people from the region to do it, and I wanted to have them specifically on songs that I thought would resonate with them too. You
Yeah.
know, and so that's kind of how all that bloomed and came to life. And so it was a real labor of love, man. Like doing something yourself and indie and all that kind of thing. That was kind of the origin story of all of that.
Yeah. Um, what was that like working with those guys?
Oh man, it was awesome. Like a real blessing, man. Like I had met Josiah through some social media stuff at the beginning,
Hmm.
and then I've met so many music friends through that kind of thing first, or I do a ton of session work as well as doing the artist thing. So I meet
Hmm.
a lot of music friends playing on their records. I play on everybody and their mother's records. I feel like sometimes, and
Yeah.
but sometimes you hit it off with somebody. Like so, Josiah is one of my greatest friends in music. Like we just, you know, kindred spirits almost, man. Like we have a very similar writing style. Like I really love his writing. He's so talented. And from the first time we worked together, I was like, man, we just really kicked it off. It almost felt like a long lost brother, truly. And so when I sent him the song "Vampire in Appalachia," he was like, man, like it connected with him. So it was really special to have him on it. And when he sent me his first kind of run at that, I was really tearing up. And with
Yeah.
Charles was the same. Like, "Oh Kanawha" was this song that I had kind of put on the shelf because I had got some really bad feedback on it from somebody in Nashville, like a label. It was very very early days when I got invited to submit this song, and so I was like, oh man, maybe I won't record it. Then I played it for
Mhm.
Charles in a green room when he was opening for Zach Bryan. We were just kind of hanging out, and he's like, "Can you play me something about home?" I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Man, you gotta record that, bro. Like that's really great." And I was like, "You think so?" And so then I sent him a demo, and I wasn't sure what to do with the second verse, and he's like, "Well, maybe I'll do it this way." And I was like, "Man, Would you like to be on it?" He's like, "I would love to do it." And so he came and did it, and what a guy. Like I didn't have to do that, and just I was really added the perfect thing to that. So it's even better that good friends of mine, both those guys, and so it's really
Mhm.
special to have people that are from there and that you also have a good connection with to be on the record. So, and they
Yeah.
both since that they're both doing amazing things, and so it's been good for that too. But I'm just really proud to have those guys on there, and it means a lot.
Yeah, you've performed at a lot of iconic venues like the Bluebird Cafe,
Yeah,
Mountain
man.
Stage. Uh, have those shaped you in any way?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, some of those things for somebody like me who was, like I said, it really hasn't been. I was telling this story at a show the other day. Like I had one of those memories come up on Facebook, like almost 5 years ago to the day,
Hmm.
where I went and played like a 3 hour gig at this coffee shop, man, just to whatever with my guitar, and I played for 3 hours and I only made $7 in tips. It was really discouraging, you know. And the staff felt so bad for me that they gave me like a bag of old scones on the way out the door, and like we thought it was pretty good, and I was like, oh man, I was just so discouraged. I was like, this is so hard, this is so
Yeah.
hard, and so that um, when I got the call for the Bluebird, I was just so blown away by that. Same with Mountain Stage. I mean, Mountain Stage especially, like being in my hometown. I mean, I just and that did so many wonderful both those things. Those are invite only kind of things. You can't just get booked on them. And so, as
Right.
a writer, those just do so many things in the industry for your career too. To be recognized in that way is a real honor. And so, there's still some bucket list things that I would want to do, and those are the kind of things that I hang my hat on. Like, man, like on those really hard days, it's like cool. Like I try to remember those. It's kind of real special
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah. I'm sure that builds a lot of confidence and keeps you going.
for sure, 100%.
Um, so what was it like being on America's Got Talent, the auditioning process, all of it?
Man, it was an interesting experience. I was really torn on whether or not to do it, and the first time that they actually recruited me on the show, so it was beneficial to me in that I got to skip some of the whole stuff sometimes you see on TV where people are waiting in line for 2 days at the convention center.
Hmm.
And the first time I got called to do it, I actually passed on doing it. I wasn't really convinced it would be good for me, and I had got called to do the Bluebird, and so I was not going to not do the Bluebird. It's not like they
Right.
offered me three different dates. It was my first time. I was like, okay, I'm not going to not do that. and they called me the next summer to do it, and I was okay. I knew I was planning on releasing an album, and so I actually went when I went to Pasadena, California. I took the fiddle and the guitar because I wasn't sure. I was like, should I sing? Should I play the fiddle? And then when I went into the first day to the backstage area or whatever, I saw like everybody and their mother seemed like they were going to be singing the day I was there. And I was like, man, I don't see anybody with a fiddle. And so I'm going all in on that. Like, and
Yeah.
so that's why I decided to try to do something really crazy. Like, I'm going to get this like 110-year-old wooden fiddle, this guy from Appalachia, and I'm going to play over like System of a Down and just try to do something really crazy, just my whole goal with America's Got Talent was to use the national exposure to, like, that's the old marketing degree. I wanted to reach people outside of my genre that would never have seen me otherwise. And so I really got what I wanted to get out of it. Like, I had a really great experience. I never dreamed I'd be out in Pasadena for that many weeks. The audition week was really fun. I knew the day I performed in front of that live audience. I mean, or the studio audience in that huge theater. I mean, I tore it up. I mean, I knew out in the room. I got all yeses from the judges. And they'll tell you when you walk off stage, like, listen, just because you got yeses doesn't mean we're going to air it on TV. Doesn't mean you're coming back, but we'll call you and let you know.
Yeah.
But I felt really good about it. Then I got called to these like live television episodes, which is like the real sauce. And
Yeah.
so my goal was to, once again, I just wanted to capitalize on it. So I had a really great few weeks out there in Pasadena. I was on live TV several times. I made it into the top 5 or whatever, and I got what I wanted to get out of it. And I was and it ended up, fortunately for me, I did not plan it this way, but the week my album dropped, I was on NBC like 5 times that week. And
Hmm.
so that really kind of helped give that, for me as an indie artist, that album had so much sauce. I was on, you know, cable like over and over and over that week, and the album came out on the Friday. And so it was just a huge boost to my record,
Yeah.
which was really, really cool. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was a good experience overall. Like I said, I really didn't. I mean, winning $1 million on a program like that would be cool, but if you win, you're really like kind of married to them for at least a year or two. You got to go live in Las Vegas, and you're like, you have that talent contract with them.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about that, how all that works, but like, it's like, you're pretty much dialed in with them for a while, and you can't really release your own stuff unless they own it and all those kind of things. So I got as far as I would have wanted to really go without being married to them, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect for what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, so how do you balance, life on the road, touring, and your home life? And
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the real, my wife and I's theme the last like year and a half, 2 years, especially as this has really grown. And our family theme has been like, we're just figuring it out. I got 3 young, elementary and 1 preschool. I have 2 elementary age kids and 1 preschool age kid. So,
yeah.
um, and my wife is just amazing and so supportive. And so I've never really had a desire to be gone like 100 nights a year doing the touring thing. I love to do live shows. And
Yeah.
so my goal from the jump has been to find a balance between doing a decent quantity of shows and then also be able to be dad and like be a
Right.
husband. And so the fiddle helps me a lot with that. Like I said, I do a lot of session work and private events too, like those kind of corporate gigs, which some artists don't love doing. I love doing them because they pay super great and they travel in style. It's not like tour traveling.
Yeah.
But I love doing tour shows too. So this year has been the most touring I've ever done, and I was really worried that it would take away too much of my life. But really, I feel like we had a really good balance. It's given me a lot of time back to those random like Tuesdays where I can go on field trips with the kids when I'm just home all week. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard though. It's a different schedule. Like my days really bleed together. Like I lose my days of the week since I'm not doing the 9 to 5 thing anymore, and a lot of my stuff happens in the evenings. But
Hmm.
um, it's a real honor to get to do it, man. Like I'm just blown away anytime anyone comes, and when I get to do these kind of cool things where I open for friends. Like I got to open for Watt this year, Watt Flores, and
Hmm.
some of my buddies from our neck of the woods, like 49 Winchester, and stuff like that. Like I love doing those opening things too, because you get to introduce yourself to a new audience and stuff. So, anyways, it's a huge learning curve. I think next year will be interesting because I want to go record this new record in the winter time when it's a little slow, and then I'm hoping to, I'll start planning for the spring and I'm sorry for the summer and fall is kind of when I try to really do most of my shows. So we'll see how all that shapes up.
All right. Uh, so I mean, you really achieved a lot, but do you have any long-term goals? Like you said that you maybe had some bucket list things.
Yeah, I mean, always. I mean, that's, I think if you're not trying to plan for that, it's really easy to get stagnant, or just like it's very easy to get burned out. So I've dealt with that a couple of times where I've had to like really, deal with a few things. It's funny, like when things really grow like you want them to grow. Sometimes it's hard. You end up not taking care of yourself. So like this year, for example, I haven't done hardly any like live streaming when I'm off the road. Like that was such a big part of my life before I was touring, and
Hmm.
it was becoming way too much. So I took a break from that this year. But there are a few things that I would love to do. Like probably my biggest bucket list thing I haven't done yet is like I would love to step into the circle at the Opry and like play a
Hmm.
song I've written. So if
Yeah.
that happens one of these days, like that's one of my biggest goals. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully that happens one day. And there's like some venues like that. Like I'd love to play the Caverns. I'd love to play Red Rocks one day. Things like that, And I'd love to just one of the things I've always wanted to do, which I've done the past couple years, is be able to just make a living and provide it for my family with music and just music. And that's given me so much joy to be able to do that and do what I love to do. So like, there's been
Yeah.
so many moments I've been this venue or that venue or doing this thing or that thing, and I've been like, I cannot believe, I'm getting paid to be here and that people are here. I just can't believe it. It's just such a for somebody like me who's kind of restarted this at 35 and was like, all right, I'm gonna try at 35 to see if I can do this.
Hmm.
And people have been so kind to me, man. Like artists and in our community, like whatever you call our genre, Americana or whatever, alt country, bluegrass country, I don't know, Appalachian country, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
It's such a great group of people. Like people have shown me so much kindness that haven't needed to, and opened a door here or there for me, or invited me along for this or that. And it's not a perfect industry by any means, but there have been so many times where I've been close to hanging it up, and this thing or that thing has come along and inspired me to just keep going one more day. And so, yeah, man, I don't know. That's a very rambling, long answer, but I just trying to take it as it comes, like. But I'd say my biggest dream, since I've dreamed about since we visited it when I was like 7 years old. We visited the old Opry on a trip to Nashville when I was like 7 or 8. Would be to play at the Opry. I mean, that would just be like
Yeah.
a total dream come true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so do you have any memorable interactions with maybe some people you looked up to or people in the music industry that, you know, that's left a lasting impression?
Oh man. Yeah, I've got to. Um, I had the real pleasure of writing with this legend, this guy Ronnie Bowman, who he's won Vocalist of the Year and
Yeah.
just an incredible writer. Like he's written a bunch of stuff for Chris Stapleton and others.
Hmm.
So we got to write together a couple times, and that was just a true dream, man. I mean, I like just seeing a master at their craft. I got to play with Darius Rucker a couple times. I got to play Wagon Wheel with him. That was really, really fun. And for somebody like that you've seen, who's been playing music since forever, from Hootie
Yeah.
to what he does now, that was very cool. And I've got to just meet so many wonderful people. I think that's the coolest thing about doing this for a living. Is sometimes you'll be in a room or you'll be at a venue doing something, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm meeting this person right now that like I'm like a huge fan of what they do, or they've
Hmm.
inspired me so much. And I think the biggest lesson that I've tried to, or the biggest thing I try to just always hold to is I just try to be, they're just people too, So I just try to
Yeah.
learn from them, and just try to just show some humility, and just try to be a sponge, man, and learn something from everybody I meet, young and old. Like like I said, opening up for a guy like Wyatt this year. Wyatt is, he's young. I mean, I don't even think he's 25 yet. Maybe he's 25. I don't know. But like it's inspiring to be around somebody that is that age doing that big of things.
Hmm.
Very similar to like when you may meeting somebody who's a little more experienced than you. Like Ronnie's had this incredible
Yeah.
lifelong career in music, and so in that room, I always thought my job is to be like, I'm just sitting here. I want to like learn everything this guy has to teach me. And
Hmm.
so yeah, it's been an incredible journey. I just can't believe I'm been able to do what I've been able to do. It's just been such a blessing, man, truly.
Yeah, I bet. My uncle actually played for Ronnie Bowman for a while.
Oh, no way, really?
Yeah, yeah, he plays bass.
Oh, that's rad. I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Yeah, Ronnie's a great guy. I really
Yeah.
love him.
Um, let's see here. What advice would you give to any aspiring musicians, especially specifically Appalachian musicians, like younger folk?
Yeah, you know, I think it's so funny. It's cool that like now it's like the in thing to be
Hmm.
from authentically from Appalachia. Like, oh wow, you
Yeah.
know, like I had a chance to play with Sierra Farrell this year, and you know she's from like you know West Virginia too, and we were joking about that. I was like, is that funny? Like you know, like but you think of all the artists that are from Charles
Yeah.
and whoever else, right, from that part of the country. And so my best advice is that the biggest thing that you have going for you as an artist in this creative space is that you are you. You're one of one. And so a lot of times in this industry, it's such a comparative industry, and we all borrow from each other. Of course, there's nothing wrong with watching what somebody else does and trying to emulate what they do, but is not losing your authenticity and like what makes you you. Because
Mhm.
the people that go out there and try to like copy paste XYZ artist or writer or style, they're a dime a dozen, and that it can be so tempting to do that, especially when you feel like you're beating your head against the wall and like nobody's listening and nobody cares. And I'm nobody. I feel like you know what I mean. Like I feel like it's such a short jump. It feels like sometimes from when you're in that space where like you're just trying to write and play your songs for people, and like five people show up and nobody really is listening to your stuff online or whatever. And then one day it's like a series of very small wins, and then every now and then you get a big win. Every now and then you get a big win, and so it's so hard to stay true to yourself and really believe in what it is that you're doing. But if you can stay, the more authentic you can stay, the more
Mhm.
staying power it has because you're gonna stand out. You're gonna, you know, I've never thought of myself as like having a great voice. That was like a real sticking point for me for a long time. I was really embarrassed to sing in front of people when I was like a teenager and stuff. And then when you can embrace just what makes you you, then it becomes a lot less pressure on yourself. So that's my best advice. Is just try to hold on to your authenticity and do not at all costs like do not lose that.
Yeah. Uh, so do you have any message that you hope, the people who listen to your music can take away from it?
Mm. Yeah, you know, I think even when I'm singing sad songs, I try to have I try to keep that kind of little bit of hopefulness in there. But I think that I hope that what people can take away from my music is that just something real, you know. So like
Hmm.
like that they can maybe feel what I'm feeling, and that they can hold on to it and apply it to whatever that they're going through, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that is, like I said, that's the real beauty of there's nothing better in the whole wide world than when you maybe are singing a song that you've written and you hear people singing it, or you see them kind of mouthing the lyrics, or you see a little tear or whatever, because or they come up to you after a show and be like, this song means so much to me because of whatever in my life. And
Hmm.
I think that is like the greatest gift that music's kind of like this symbiotic relationship between an artist and a fan or a listener or a supporter, in that
Hmm.
like we can't do it without y'all, and then or you know the people that are listening and supporting, and vice versa, like they come to hear. And so um that's what I hope people can when they hear my music, that they are receiving that. It's not just some like there's not 50 writers on every song. Maybe I got one co-writer on a song here and there, maybe two. It's a real rare bird. But like, you know, it's not like we're not sitting in a room over at Warner Brothers with like 25 people and we're chopping up a formula to spit out songs. These are like real
Yeah.
storytelling, and that's what I want people to get from my music. It's something real.
Is there anything else that you want your fans to know, or any aspiring musicians?
You know, I would just say that you know, people will line up around the block to tell you what you can't do, and you know, like everything is impossible until it's done. And I think that the biggest difference in like you and I having this conversation right now and not is that on those days where you make the $7 in tips and you go home really discouraged, the biggest thing is like that next morning, what are you doing when you get up? Do you just
Yeah.
try or are you quitting? And that's how you find out if you're really in it to win it or not. If it's just a hobby for you, then it's really easy to lay it down and be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm good. But
Hmm.
it, sometimes I'll have people be like, oh, but you feel so lucky to be doing this. Like this happens so fast. I'm like, man, like I don't, this is like 5 years of this and thousands of hours of like beating my head against the wall. And I think that just sticking with it one more day, whatever that means to you, wherever you are, and focusing on those like little wins, because it's so easy in this business to like look at the person with all the followers or all the streams and be like, well, my gosh, that's so far away from what I want to do. But
Hmm.
nobody and no one gets there overnight. Nobody. And so
Yeah.
you have to be able to not, as you can tell, I'm like a little bit passionate about this. Like you have to be able to like take the wins for what they are. I got whatever 5 new listeners this week. That's amazing. I'm playing for them. And a really popular recording artist who you would know well told me this, that somebody is out there right now waiting for your song to be their favorite song, but you got to take it to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take it to them for you. And so you just there's no substitute for the work. There's just not. And so that's my advice. On the hard days, there's just no substitute for the work. And it sometimes it does really suck, but it's so rewarding when it starts to click a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really inspiring.
Well, good. I hope so. Well, people have inspired me in that way, and I think that if you can't feel passionate about it in that way, and you're trying to really do this, like I said,
Hmm.
more than just like, okay, I wanna play like one show this year. I wanna have one song that I finish. If you're really trying to do this for real and have the respect of your peers and whatever you want to call it, do the artist thing, then you gotta
Hmm.
you gotta have that kind of fire underneath you, or you'll die on the vine, as my grandma used to say. It's so hard because it's like there's so much noise out there. So but if you have that kind of underneath you, then I feel like you have such a good chance of success.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
If
man.
nobody else takes anything from it, I did.
Good. Well, good. I hope so. It's great, man. Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. So you're gonna do a song for us?
Yeah, man. I'll sing you one. I'll sing you one. Absolutely. I'll do one. I'm trying to think if I should do one that's out or one that's coming. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. Is that a
For sure.
D45?
This is my D41 Martin. This little
Oh,
custom neck bass.
D41.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. And I got this at Gruen Guitars in Nashville. I had wanted this guitar for so long,
Hmm.
and I got this the day that when I found out I got the Bluebird. I was in Nashville and I went and got this guitar, and the first time I ever played this in front of any people was at the Bluebird on the Bluebird stage. So
Yeah.
yeah, man. And then I played it on Mountain Stage right after that. So this is yeah, I love this guitar, and these are the more you play them, the more they warm up.
Hmm.
All right, I think I'll play you one that's like it's gonna be coming out on my next record. I've been playing it at shows and stuff, and it's called The Wheel. It's a sad song, but that's okay.
Okay.
Captain weighed the anchor, head out from the shore. Say goodbye to Tampa, he don't live there anymore. Floated up the Gulf Coast, straight to New Orleans, sitting on a riverboat and living low in Maine. Felt he had a sure thing and put it all on red, but that demon wheel kept spinning and bad luck struck again. So he begged and borrowed broken soul just to give it one more try. But that hole, it is a deep one once you fall down inside. Now he's begging for a blessing from some city on a hill. And he ain't really tried to change much. I guess he never will. I see him crawl back up the gangway, spy an old familiar friend, the devil promising salvation if he just spins the wheel again. If he just spins the wheel again. Well, he can't run home to mama, and daddy's in the grave. Had a Hallmark family once, and he threw them all away. And all the paper in his pockets and the silver in his shoes carry him back to the table like a hangman to the noose. Now he's begging for a blessing from some city on a hill. And he ain't really tried to change much. I guess he never will. See him crawl back up the gangway and spy an old familiar friend, the devil promising salvation if he just spins the wheel again. The devil promising salvation if he just spins the wheel again. The captain weighed the anchor, head out from the shore, say goodbye to Tampa, he don't live there anymore.
All right.
There you go, man. That's the wheel.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, of
I
course, man.
appreciate it.